So it is my pleasure to introduce Kristina. She's going to be talking to us today about Mahara ePortfolios for Moodle users. Kristina is a member of the Mahara development team at Catalyst IT here in New Zealand, and I know is pretty much the one person you go to if you've got a Mahara question. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Kristina. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Teresa. It is really fantastic to have another iMoot this year again, and so I'm very much looking forward to the next few days. But we'll most likely need to do quite a bit of catching up then over the weekend or afterwards. Thank you very much for coming to today's session, to the only one on that I'm giving on Mahara itself. And we've titled it Mahara ePortfolios for Moodle Users. Because it is very important to, of course, at an iMoot to talk about Moodle, but also see what other integration points are available. And so that is the plan for today's session, that we look at why you would actually be using a dedicated ePortfolio software when you already have Moodle that has some of that functionality, or where you can also display student work and have them create portfolios. And so before I start with the presentation, I'd like to know from everyone here in the room whether you've already had experience with Mahara, or whether you've already started using portfolios in general, or if you're a novice to everything there. And so from what I can see in the session, we've got Teresa and the Whistle team at Waikato University, François, who's from Montreal, and then we've also got Frank in there. So please feel free to type in your answers in the chat, or just grab the mic as well and let us hear your voice. Okay, Frank, so you've done a little exploration. Do you mean little exploration with ePortfolios in general, or with Mahara specifically? Okay, fantastic. And where are you from, Frank? That's the nice thing about the iMoots. They are always so international that you can, no matter what time of the day, you can talk with people from around the world, and everybody's just coming together online. Oh, another Canadian. Fantastic. Okay, François, thanks for letting us know that you are already a Mahara user. And going from Mahara 1.4 to Mahara 1.9 will be a big step, but it will also be a fantastic step because you'll have so many new functionalities available. And also welcome to Nicholas. And what I suggest is that we get started with the presentation, and then we should have plenty of time for questions of yours. And please feel free to use the mic, or also ask your questions in the chat during the presentation so that we can answer those. Just a little bit about myself. As Teresa already mentioned, I'm a member of the core Mahara developer team here at Catalyst IT in Wellington in New Zealand, where it is exactly lunchtime, so right midday. And I have a number of different roles in the team and also within the community. And so for one thing, I kind of help fix bugs or find them, and also make feature requests, and just be there in the community answering questions on our forums. Sometimes when I also do testing, either of existing features or of new features, or when people have questions in the forums, that we also test whether there's a bug that would need to be reported to the team. But of course, also when we implement new features in Mahara, those need to be tested before they go into the core code, just so that we can be as sure as possible that there are no problems afterwards. And that also brings me to the review process. So sometimes I'm also involved in that, just checking that language strings are correct while things are still in development, or also give feedback directly on new features. And numerous times also during each development cycle, I always put the top hat on for being a Mahara core developer, but usually I only change small things in the code relating to language strings, because my role is more of community support and then also being on the front end available for users and not so much in the development area. And one of the bigger jobs that I have within the Mahara community is updating the Mahara user manual from version to version and fixing bugs in there, and especially typos that I put in before, so that we always have a proper user manual there that is up to date and that users can refer to whenever they have a question about Mahara. And so what is Mahara actually? Well, Mahara is, as we already said in the announcement for this session, an ePortfolio system. And the word Mahara actually means to think or thinking in Māori. So in the language of the Māori here in New Zealand, but it actually also exists in many other languages, especially Arabic or Persian, so in that part of the world. So it's always interesting to see what those meanings are, and that some of them are actually also pretty close to what we want to convey with Mahara. So the big word that we use for Mahara, the big verb that we use is to think, because that's what you always have to do in a portfolio, to think what you want to put in there and how your work is going to be presented. Additionally, you can of course also create content directly in the ePortfolio that you want to put in, which we call evidence or artifacts most of the time. And so you have journal functionality within Mahara. You also have the chance to just write text, link to external resources, embed content from other websites, and so on. And then you can also collect things that you have on your computer or that are online that you want to bring into your portfolio. And yes, Shane, we do wish that people would think before they do a lot of things. So that's why we put it at the center of it. And oftentimes people think just implicitly and not necessarily explicitly. So with the ePortfolio, we also want to make those processes more explicit so that it is being clear of why you're doing certain things. As next part, you can also aggregate content within Mahara. And that is what I usually do quite a bit instead of just creating content within Mahara itself, because it is a great tool for pulling in content, resources, media from other websites around, other sites around the web. So embedding a YouTube video, embedding Vimeo video, embedding just a WordPress blog that you've already had for a number of years, and things like that. And so that really makes it easy to show and display everything just in one place. And of course, with all these things that we've just already mentioned, it's not just the thinking part that is important, but also the reflection. Because in a portfolio, you kind of want to look back at the things that you have done and then see what you might need to do differently the next time. And once, of course, we've created and collected all the content that we want to have in a portfolio, it is necessary to organize it. So to arrange it, to really show those people who are looking at the portfolio where we make the connections, how these individual artifacts, how the learning evidence that is being displayed in the portfolio connects with each other, how they all work together, and why they are being displayed together. And then we can also come to the presentation part, where once we've organized everything on pages, we present it to the people that we want to take a look at the portfolio. That does not necessarily have to be just a presentation or showcase portfolio where you show off your best works or want to get a job through the portfolio, but where you also present your development process that you have taken through in order to get to the point where you are at. And once you've created all that, you've collected and created your content, you pulled in resources from other areas of the web, you reflected on your thinking, organized everything into pages or collections or into a series of portfolio pages, you can then share it with other people. And that is also one very big point for Mahara that is distinguishing to other systems, is that our sharing permissions framework is very extensive. So the learner can always decide what they want to share with whom. So they can share just one portfolio with one person. They can share a portfolio with their friends. They can also just share a portfolio page that is still being in the process of being developed with a lecturer or instructor, or they can share their portfolios with the entire world. And throughout the presentation, I'll give you some links to portfolio examples that you can take a look at in order to get some inspiration or ideas of what these portfolios could look like. And so once you've shared everything, of course it is nowadays, the web is not just a place where you do things on your own, but where you also oftentimes collaborate with others. So what we have also put into Mahara is collaboration spaces in the form of groups so that you can work together on projects and also just communicate with others. And also have the possibility to network with other people on ideas, on projects, and just share your results or draft of the progress that you have made together. So now just to give you an idea of some of what some of these pages could look like, I have some of them right here, and I'll paste the links to these pages also into the chat so that you can more easily look at them at your own time. So here we've got an example from the University of the Arts London, which call their Mahara instance workflow. And this is the start of a portfolio page of Sophia. And as you can see, she works with text, but also uses images quite a bit, and then also works with different font sizes. The next example that we have is also from the University of the Arts London student. It is art. And there you can see she also works quite a bit of text, but incorporates also formatting in there. And then also again uses images. And here you have also, here you see that she also embeds videos directly. And that is what I like so much about Mahara, that you can pull in many different content items into one page and show everything up in context, so that you don't just have everything down in a linear fashion, like you oftentimes have on a blog, where you start your text, you put your video there, and then your images below. But here you can really arrange things in rows and also in columns. So to place things next to each other to show connections between the individual items. And now this example is from the Southampton Solent University in the UK, and it is by Chloe. And this is an example of an employability portfolio. So Solent University uses their Mahara instance quite heavily with students to find work, to find internships. And so they have done a lot of work around assisting students with creating portfolios where they show their progression, where they show off their skills, where they work with a resume. And here we have Chloe just presenting what she has done. She has her career aspirations, her personal goals, her professional goals in there, and then also her planning. So that a plan that she had set up in order to finish her employment portfolio. The next example is also from Solent University, and throughout these examples you've hopefully already seen a little bit that the design can be quite different. And sometimes it is really just up to the institution to say we allow our students to be really creative and design their own pages as they wish. Or in some cases, they provide a certain corporate ID template as a theme for that institution, which students can then use, but still within the context, make it their own, give it their own personality by the use of images that they've created themselves or that they use from online, or also incorporate videos then. Here we see a slightly different arrangement on the portfolio page. And namely that we've got all the images at the top, and then the career goals, the download for the curriculum vitae, below and also a video embedded. And so what we've already seen so far in these examples were that students can work normally with text, that they can also style this text to their liking, and then embed images, can embed videos, and also arrange all the items very flexibly on the pages to show the connections amongst all of them. Teresa asks in the chat, how does the University of Arts London have friendly URLs for their page views? Teresa, that is a built-in feature in Mahara, which you also have at least on myportfolio.school.nz. I'm not quite sure yet whether .ac is already set up for friendly URLs, but that is just a configuration in Mahara that can be used on any site. And so that you can have the regular URL and then the name of the user so that it is just easier also to see, and so that all the pages can also have a friendly URL that is human readable. Let me just briefly scroll down. Okay. Yes, so that's just the setting, Teresa. It does require server access to actually make Apache configure the URL properly the first time, but afterwards everyone can just change things directly on the interface. Okay, let's look at the next example, because this is now actually quite different. This is also an example from Solent University, but in contrast to the other previous examples that we looked at, which were showcase portfolios in the for the portfolios from the University of the Arts, London, and then also employability portfolios from Solent. On this page, we actually have a case study. Again, the setup of the page is still very similar, that you've got text, you work with videos. We also have some files that have been uploaded under the unit guide and assignment, and then further down on the page as well. But what is different about this here is that it is not a personal portfolio, but that it is more of a resource. So more of a web page that has been created for instructional purposes, as resource page for others who are also interested in working with the portfolios for employability and work placement skills. So Mahara is not only used for individual portfolio work so that you can present yourself, but it is also used to present work that you have done, or in this case here, as we've seen from Solent University, it can also be used to share resources with others in a very simple way. And another case of how you can use Mahara is that when you oftentimes start using portfolios with students, they often don't really know where to get started, what to do, because it is a new medium for them. It is a new way of learning, dealing with learning content, and so on. And so oftentimes what institutions, especially schools or tertiaries, do is to create a template so that you can support the students in getting used to portfolio work, in getting started with their portfolio, and guide them along. So do scaffolding, which will then help them get their ePortfolio sorted, instead of just thinking, where do I start, what do I do next? So here we have an example of City of Glasgow College. So my.cityofglasgowcollege.ac.uk. And this is actually a template consisting of multiple pages. And with the help of the link that I posted, you can just click through it and see how that portfolio was set up. Some of these elements of a page in the portfolio are empty. For example, the education history and also the employment history. Once a student copies this template into their own portfolio, these areas will be populated with the content which the students put into their own resume area. And this is a nice way of helping students get started with the portfolio work so that they do not have to set up everything themselves, but have some assistance there. see. Do you have any questions so far? So please always feel free to put your questions into the chat and interrupt me if you want to have clarifications or if you have any questions around Mahara or the things that I have shown so far. So what we've discussed up to now was that you can create a portfolio, that you could also create a resource page or a collection of resources on Mahara, and also help students in their portfolio creation process with templates. What is also nice about an electronic portfolio is that the feedback that you can record on individual learning evidence or on a Mahara page then becomes part of the portfolio, because it is stored on the portfolio page itself, making it possible to take it along and then also becoming a permanent record of that portfolio. Whereas when we have paper portfolios, sometimes feedback that is provided is only provided orally and does not really make it into the portfolio. Whereas when we use an electronic portfolio, you can either give feedback in writing, or you can audio record yourself and then attach that file as feedback. That is what a lot of language teachers do. When students kind of upload a video or an audio of a text that they have spoken, which they want to put into their portfolio, then the teacher could take that audio file and add their own comments to it, or also create just a separate audio file and upload that to the portfolio so that the students have verbal feedback, but still in the form of a file that is being placed onto their portfolio and that they can also refer to later on or can use as reference point for future work, or also to see how they then have improved from one term to the next. I already mentioned that Mahara is not just for individual use, but can also be used quite heavily with groups, and where you can communicate and collaborate together. And these groups can have many, many different purposes. So they can just be social, that you say, that you just talk to each other and use it as kind of lounge that we sometimes set up in Moodle courses, just to check in with each other, maybe plan events and the like. Then you can of course also use groups for project work, so that you have communication channels like a forum, a place where you can upload files that are shared with everyone within the group, and then also have the opportunity to set up project portfolios where everyone within the group can contribute to. Or you could just use it for pure communications purposes, that you make announcements within a group in order to reach a certain number of users directly, without having to email them separately or using the Moodle communication systems if you do not want to go via Moodle but really want to communicate around ePortfolio use. Now, this presentation is actually not just about Mahara itself, but why would you as Moodle users use it, or why do you already use it? If you are already using Mahara together with Moodle, please feel free to put in your use cases into the chat so that they can also enrich the discussion and that we can see how people around the world are using Mahara already with Moodle. When we hook up Mahara to Moodle, then there's actually a term for it, which is Mahara. So Mahara plus Moodle results in Mahara. So when people talk about this system, then they just mean the combination of Moodle and Mahara. And the nice thing about combining these two systems is that you can get a built-in single sign-on. Through the Mnet functionality in both Moodle and Mahara, you can jump from one system into the other. And that allows you to not have to worry about a second login. The Whistle team asked, and I think somebody earlier on said it might actually be Stephen, asked whether there are any progress towards replacing MNet with OAuth. Stephen, hopefully we'll have we'll be able to meet with Moodle HQ next week. I just talked with one developer there yesterday, and so hopefully we'll be able to progress things next week and can see what our next steps are for that. And then, of course, we'll update the community on that progress. So you'll definitely hear from me once we know more. But let's keep our fingers crossed that we can progress things. So one thing, of course, is the authentication, which makes it very easy to connect Mahara to Moodle because it just allows your students to go from one system into the other without having to log in again. Another great aspect why you would want to use Mahara together with Moodle is that you can export content from Moodle directly into Mahara. So if your students participated in forum discussions or uploaded assignments or glossary entries, for example, they can click on a link which says export to portfolio, and then this content makes it directly into their Mahara ePortfolio, where they can then continue to use it as learning evidence in their own portfolios. So, for example, if they demonstrated certain communication skills in a forum post within Moodle, then they can export that directly into their portfolio and then reuse it there without first having to copy and paste that comment that they made or making a PDF file out of it and then uploading that PDF file again into their portfolio. But you could also use Mahara in Moodle for assessment purposes. In general, Mahara has been, or in the beginning when Mahara was established, the focus was on Mahara being a personal learning environment, so that the student is in the center, that everything revolves around the learner, and that they can always decide what they want to put into their portfolio and especially with whom they want to share it. But of course, because portfolios are now sometimes used in education and kind of the use of portfolios becomes more and more important in education, it is also necessary sometimes to use it for assessment purposes and not just say to students, okay, now use it for employability, to get an internship or to get a job. But it is also a very good teaching method to use portfolios. But of course, when we're using it in a course, then instructors oftentimes do also want to be able to grade it or to give feedback, which is not always just formative, but can also be summative. And there is a plugin available, the Mahara Assignment Submission plugin, which works with Moodle, needs to be installed in Moodle, and that allows you to assess a Mahara portfolio, be that just a one-page portfolio or a multi-page portfolio from within Moodle, and use the standard Moodle gradebook functionalities for that. Because Moodle offers us the portfolio rubric so that you can set up a rubric in order to grade an assignment. And so that can be used very nicely in order to evaluate a Mahara portfolio, but still also keep all the assessment data within the Moodle gradebook instead of splitting that up into two different systems. And I've already mentioned another big point why you would be looking into using Mahara in conjunction with Moodle would be to have that learner focus, to really allow your learners to create their portfolio, to be creative, to design the pages the way they want, or to change templates and so on, and not just follow the lead of the instructor. Because in Moodle, when you're in a course, you're always dependent on the instructor to add assignments or to add a form, which allows you then to upload something or to participate in a discussion. Whereas on Mahara, within your own portfolio space, you can invite anyone to participate with you, to give you feedback, to check out your progress. And then through the group functionality, you can, if it is set up in the way that everyone can create groups, then you are also free just to create learner groups, create project groups, or just create a group for you and an instructor to discuss your portfolio more easily. And so that is one big reason also why it is interesting to look at both systems, Moodle as the LMS, where the teacher is in control, and Mahara as the ePortfolio site where the student is controlled. One member of the Mahara community once said very nicely that Moodle is theirs, so meaning the instructors, whereas Mahara is yours. So your own portfolio where you can do what you deem to be the nicest thing for you and what you want to follow. So now, what can these Mahara sites actually look like? We know that Moodle can be themed very differently and that you have all the choices available, and that is also the case for Mahara. So here you see the community site that we have, mahara.org, and this site we created more as a not really content management system, but it is used very much to display content, to make resources available to the community, and not so much as portfolio site. We also use it heavily for communication purposes, to answer questions, to collect questions from users, and also to be in touch with them. So this site is very much information and also communication with our users in the community. This next page here, that is the University of the Arts London site called Workflow. And you already see that they made quite a number of changes. Them being an art school, of course, they are very visual and do want to portray that also on their portfolio site. And Mike Kelly at the university does a lot of work for Mahara, making changes to it, and then oftentimes also contributing it back to the community. This next slide you have also seen, because that is the homepage of Solent, not quite yet, Solent University. And as you can see here, they changed Mahara again quite heavily, even already on the page that when you're not logged in, to focus on the purpose of their portfolio, which is employability. And so also within the rest of it, they made a number of theme changes to support this purpose. And a few more sites to give you an idea of that you can just theme Mahara in many different ways. Is another portfolio site for a design school, Pratt Institute in New York. Then we have another tertiary site, myportfolio.ac.nz. This is a site that is actually a so-called multi-tenanted Mahara site, because it is possible to install one Mahara site and connect many other, many Moodles, for example, to it. Switch in Switzerland has done the same, so that they provide one Mahara site for all the Swiss universities so that all of them can connect to. And that allows them to also communicate amongst each other. Whereas Moodle is oftentimes installed just for one institution so that you can manage your courses, manage your departments and users. The ePortfolio oftentimes is more than that, because you also want to connect with the community. You maybe want to connect with experts who are outside of your university, or also collaborate with others across university or general institution boundaries. And that's why some people do set up the so-called multi-tenanted Mahara sites, allowing many different institutions to connect to them and therefore share one site, but still be able to also theme it for their own purposes, but allow their users to connect with each other, to contact each other, to form working groups, and also to share portfolio results and so on, and give each other feedback. Just a couple more examples for tertiary sites for Mahara are Forth Valley College in Scotland. They go with a rather standard Mahara design so that you have the middle part and everything there, but they do adopt it and make it their own by changing the logo and also putting in different colors. Just an example from Down Under, which is the University of Canberra. They use Moodle or Mahara in conjunction with Moodle and allow their students to jump from Moodle into Mahara and then export portfolios already. Some of the other examples that I've showed do the same, whereas some may not really work with Moodle all the time. For example, some of the universities have switched. And just to show you that Mahara is not just used in the English-speaking world, but also by tertiary institutions in other countries. Here's an example for a Japanese site. And Japan has actually been really, really active in Mahara because we have one Japanese translator who's always on top of Mahara translations. They have been having conferences and kind of user group meetings for a number of years already. And so there we have quite a few users for Mahara, especially at the university level, as far as I know. But of course, Mahara is not just used in tertiary institutions in the States, in the UK, in continental Europe, in Australia, and in New Zealand, and many other countries, but it is also used in the school sector. For example, here in New Zealand, we have a multi-tenanted Mahara instance for any school in New Zealand that would like to connect to it. And that is myportfolio.school.nz. In Finland, there is also an instance that many educational institutions can connect to and use for their portfolio purposes. And last year, a EU project was started, which is the ePortfolio project. And that project spans a number of countries, for example, Austria and Slovenia. And they also use Mahara to explore what can be done with portfolios. And that is in particular also for the school sector. So we've already seen uses of Mahara in tertiary education, in primary and secondary education, but it is also used by professional associations and organizations. This example here is PALNet, and that is the Mahara site by the Principals Institute of Australia. Principals Australia Institute, sorry for that. And they use it primarily for communication purposes, for sharing events with their community, for making announcements, and for working together in groups. But they are now also more and more exploring the functionalities of the ePortfolio site. Mahara is also being used by nursing organizations, by social workers, and many others around the world who are involved in professional development. And so that shows that the ePortfolio is not just a part of formal education, but also of continuing education and then also professional development, because oftentimes, especially when you have to demonstrate skills or competencies, it is very good to collect them in a portfolio in order to then share them with others to show your progress and then, for example, be re-accredited. So now just some general, kind of not really administrative facts, but things that are good to know for Mahara when you are already a Moodle user, kind of involved in Moodle development, or have been following Moodle for quite a long time. Because similar to Moodle, Mahara is open source software and it has a worldwide community. But unlike Moodle, we are not that big a project yet. but hopefully we'll get some more developers also furthering the development of Mahara. The software itself was established back in 2006 here in New Zealand through a tertiary e-learning fund, and a number of New Zealand tertiary institutions were involved in setting up Mahara because they had the need of more of a personal learning environment and found the idea of using the ePortfolios very attractive at that time and have been using ePortfolios since. In terms of new features for Mahara, we always release new features in April and October and are like Moodle on a 6-monthly release cycle of new features. And our versions like Moodle as well are supported for 18 months. Currently, we are on Mahara 1.9, that is the latest release from April this year. And in this release, we had a lot of new features, especially pertaining to accessibility. So we've achieved the goal of being accessible completely on the user front end and be on level AA for the web content accessibility guidelines. And there are only a few pages left in the administration that will need to be fixed in order to also achieve the AA level there. And web content accessibility guidelines level 2A really means that Mahara can be accessed by screen readers and also by those with other assistive devices, and also just users who can only work with the keyboard, and allow them to navigate through the entire portfolio. The link that I posted is to our accessibility page, which details which other country guidelines are in the equivalent of WCAG 2.0 level 2A. And so we pretty much covered New Zealand, Australia, and also the EU, and also followed by having implemented level 2A, also the guidelines in the States. Those are currently though in revision, and therefore we will of course in future also check that we continue to be accessible and have that level achieved. We also made a number of usability changes, and if you are already on Mahara 1.8, there are not going to be so many changes to the overall design. Mahara 1.8 was when we really changed a lot of icons and things like that. In Mahara 1.9, we have few new features, but those expand especially multi-tenanted institution functionality, and also a number of more usability features again. So if you want to trial Mahara, you are welcome to go to our demo site, which has some demo content included, so that you don't have to start from scratch, but you can use any of the accounts that are already created and just have a play at it. Try it out, log in as a different user, see what the admin functionalities are like when you're a member of an institution or institution administrator, and really play around. But please note that the content on the demo site will be erased once a day, and usually early in the morning UK time. To support our users, we also have an extensive manual. Similar to the Moodle manual, it is open, it can be changed by everyone, and it tries to explain all the functionality that you can see on the screen and that you can see in the Mahara instance. And what we try to do in the manual is to work a lot with screenshots so that you can compare it very easily to what you see on your screen. So have these so-called callouts there to show individual parts, and then below the screenshot have the explanations. And this manual has been done for each version of Mahara since 1.4, so that you can very easily always go to the user manual that is current for your version, similar to what Moodle does. And here's just a small screenshot of what kind of the rest would look like, where you have short text and then usually accompanied with a screenshot, so that it is very easy to find the functionality that you're looking for. The user manual also has a full text search, making it easy to find things in there, and also an index if you already know what you're looking for, but you don't really know which section of the user manual it would be. And like Moodle as well, Mahara is not just a software. Actually, being an open source project, it really lives from the people and for the people who are using it and who are working on it. So Mahara is not just development work and not just a software and web application that you use, but one that everyone is involved in. Being involved means just also using it, or fixing bugs, or even just reporting bugs, or reporting new features that you would like to see that can then be discussed. A very big part of the Mahara community are our translators, because they allow us to bring Mahara into different communities whose main language may not be English, or who don't know English at all and therefore need something in their own language. We also have a number of translators who are not just translating the software, but who are also translating the user manual to make that also accessible to users of their language. And of course, the designers, as you have seen in the examples that I showed, are a very important part of the Mahara community as well, because they make everything pretty. They allow us to make usability improvements. They look at these things and also just bring everything together and make the software pleasant fun to not just use, but also to look at. And then we have many other people involved in the community, be that testers, documentation writers, code reviewers, core developers, those involved in making sure that Mahara stays secure, and also plugin developers and just general Mahara ninjas who help out wherever they can by answering questions in the forums or also reporting bugs or new features. And so I hope I've been able to give you a little bit of insight what Mahara is about, what you can do with it, and why you might want to consider using it with Moodle in order for you to go away, ponder things, and then maybe take a look at Moodle and Mahara together and see how they could work for you if you haven't already used them. So you're welcome to contact me via email or Twitter, and we can continue the conversations then online. But we still have about 10 minutes left now, so if you have any questions now, I'm very happy to answer them. Sorry, Stephen, that the sound is breaking up. I hope it'll still stay proper until the end of the sessions. But if it gets worse, then I might have to come back into the session just very briefly, because it could just be something on the end or just on the interface. Teresa.
Thank you, Kristina. Just again, a thank you. So yeah, as Kristina says, if you've got any questions, just pop them in the chat or let us know. If you'd like to use your microphone, and or just unmute and start asking questions. And personally, I'm going to share a hint today. If you right-click on the chat area and select copy all text, you'll have all of those URLs, which are going to be really helpful to look at later, copied to your clipboard, so you can save that into a file. So I've just done that, and so others who might want to be frantically getting all those URLs, you can just right-click in the chat and copy all the text. But yeah, thanks again, Kristina, and we'll stay here for a while for any questions. The next session isn't until over half an hour, so yeah, no, that's good. Thanks
and
again.
I will also share my presentation slides online. So within the Moodle course that has been set up for the iMoot for the session, and then also on SlideShare, so that it's easy for you to just grab the presentation from there and then follow the links. And I'll also have these screenshots available directly. And I'll also put the links in the course so that you can very easily click on them. So I saw that a number of people made it into the session partway through. So if you just want to share whether you are already using ePortfolios or maybe already Mahara, then please do so in the chat or let us know if you want to use the mic, if you cannot unmute yourself, so that we can also know from you what your interest is in the session and whether you have any questions. Okay, so Maren says, no, I'm not yet. Still trying to work out whether our staff core competencies would actually take ownership of their portfolio. And then Stephen asks, our biggest issue is staff development. Any suggestions? Well, because they talk about using it in institutions and with staff are very good questions. And Maren, it can be tricky, and the really important part is not just, and as you also know from Moodle already, is not just to implement the software, but have a very good plan on what you want to do with it, how you want to progress it. And that also goes back to the scaffolding, how you can help staff or learners to deal with the portfolio, because it is something new for them. They are not automatically going to reflect if you do not kind of give them a task of reflecting on a regular basis so that they get used to these things. This is not something that the software can take care of you, but take care for you, but it needs to come from the users themselves, that they put things into their portfolio, that they reflect on a regular basis, and just collect everything. For staff development, Stephen, a number of institutions create templates for not just their learners, but also for their staff. So since you're on my portfolio, you can take a look at the registered teacher criteria templates that are there and can search for them. And that oftentimes helps teachers to get started with their portfolio, because all they need to do is either fill in the blanks or copy the page and then already have certain areas in there that they can start with. But going back to Mary's question also, it is very important that you know why you're using the portfolio, that there is a plan behind the portfolio use, because a lot of times, especially if the portfolio is not tied to a grade or to a specific outcome within a study program or for professional development, learners oftentimes don't see the purpose, why they should be using a portfolio, why they should be creating it, if there is no immediate return on their investment in time. And of course, if we look more at a lifelong portfolio, the investment and the return on it actually is that you can present yourself, that you know the steps that you've taken to end up at a result, or that you see your progress, or that you get the job that you are applying for. But that is oftentimes not directly seen, so that also needs to be made explicit. Stephen says, Big Bang rollout. Give everyone an account of phased rollout, faculty by faculty. What do you think? In general, I think it would be good to have a trial with a small number of people. Does not necessarily have to be from one faculty, but it might actually be better to have enthusiastic people from different faculties, because that would give you a view of how portfolios would fit into these different faculties, because the faculty of education might be very different from the medical school. And so the important thing, like with a lot of other technical solutions, is get a number of very interested people together and then nudge things out in a small group, test things, test pages or test templates, see if you're doing the right thing. And then once you're pretty sure that you have your ePortfolio strategy nailed, then roll it out to a wider department or to the entire institution. Because if you are contemplating a big bang rollout, then I would say you really need to have done all the prep work before, so that you know how you want to use the portfolios in many different faculties, what the purpose of the portfolio is, if the purpose differs between different faculties, and also whether instructors are involved in the portfolios, not just for giving feedback, but maybe also creating their own. And therefore, kind of you do need your trial group already at that time in order to get everything right and not have a faculty come back and say, oh, actually, all your assumptions are based on the Faculty of Education, where we have entirely different reasons for using a portfolio, and you would then have to go back to the drawing board. So I would always start with a trial and then see where that takes us. Hey, Marin asks, where can we have a play in Mahara to scope up a trial site without committing so that we can show it to managers? Marin, we do have the demo site available at demo.mahara.org. And as I said, though, the thing is that it is being reset once a day. And that means that you can start working in it, but then after a day, everything is being set to 0, like with the Moodle demo sites. But you can edit it. The only permission that you do not have is site administrator permission, because then you can just change too many things. But you can log in as the administrator that is on the site, and then you can change the theme for your institution. You can use the customizable theme, which allows you to change the colors, change background and things like that, so that you can at least on a small level replicate what you would like to show to your managers. And if you create content that you want to be there kind of persistently, I suggest that you export it as so-called lead to A file under portfolio export, because then if you need to continue working on it, you can import it the next day again into the portfolio site, into the demo site, and continue creating your portfolio, or also just showing it off in the meeting that you are setting up for your managers. And since we have an institution administrator account there, you do not just have to work with the existing demo accounts, but you can create as many other accounts yourself, also via CSV file, for example. Alternatively, if you want to have something more persistent, you could set up a Mahara instance on your own computer and just show it off locally there. And we have some instructions on the Mahara wiki. Let me give you the link. So these are the instructions directly for installing it on a Debian-based Linux environment. But we also have the instructions if you are working under Windows. And this allows you to set up a Mahara on your own computer, or you can just grab the zip file that we also publish on Launchpad and then install it that way. Or, of course, you can also always put it onto a testing server at your own institution if you have one. A different alternative, if you kind of want to trial a portfolio for a little while longer, then you could also, let me just go there. You could also use one of the free services that offer portfolio hosting for individuals on a free or low-cost basis. And let me just grab the link for you. And there you would have the possibility to create a portfolio that is available on a longer basis, but you may not be able to make too many layout changes unless you set up an institution on that site. and that might have some cost implications. Let me just see. Be able to find it very quickly. So here is a link to our bookmarks where we collected some of the sites that offer free Mahara hosting. Sorry, that's not quite it. It's actually this one here. So the second link, that is the correct one. There you can set up your own personal portfolio. Just choose one of the providers, set up your own personal portfolio, and then you can play with that over a longer period of time. Whereas on the demo site, you can make more changes also to an institution. Hey, and just looking at the clock now, it is 3 minutes past the time. You're welcome to stay in the session for a little while longer if you have questions, or otherwise take half an hour break until the next iMoot session. And I'd like to thank you for being here today, for asking your questions, and for showing your interest in Mahara and ePortfolios. And maybe see you in one of the other iMoot sessions. Have a nice day.
Thanks again, Kristina. And there's also a discussion forum in Kristina's Mahara course on the iMoot site. So if you want to ask a question that you think others might need an answer to as well, you can use that or contact Kristina using the details she's got there. So thanks again.
Thank you, Teresa, for being in the session and making sure that everything is running smoothly.
No problem. Enjoy the rest of the conference, Kristina.
Yeah, thank you. You too, Teresa, and everybody else in the room too.
Indeed.
Yes. Good night, Francois, and greetings to Canada.